then they can all
That's
they
true.
join together. Yeah. So John Lin, his group, couple of them online early already. So they said they will come in maybe 5 minutes before the air time.
Okay.
And then we try to keep on time. So you're the Eastern time, right?
Right.
Okay. So some from the Eastern. Martin is from East New York, and you're Eastern time. And I just came back from DC. You know.
I did too, but it took me a full 24 hours to get back because I was on Southwest Airlines, and they had air traffic control and weather delays yesterday. And then this morning we had a 6 a.m. flight. The entire Southwest Airlines system was down.
Same thing to me. You know, my
2 hours.
Yeah, more than 2 hours. My time flight time is 6 o'clock. So I got to the airport 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
So actually I wake up earlier at 3 o'clock, and then they delay for 2 hours.
Yep.
So I got here. It's a long day already. Hopefully I don't fall asleep.
Can I ask Steve Yates one very quick question?
Sure.
Yeah. Yates is related to a very famous poet, William Butler Yeats.
Aha.
Are you related?
In some way, yes, but not in a way that I know of.
Okay, so you're 100% Irish.
Yeah, well, no. So the name Yates is all over England, Scotland, and Ireland. And it comes from the Gaelic word, which means gate, the person by the gate. So the name Gates and Yates are the same name. They're just spelled differently depending on how you immigrate. So everyone that is named Yates probably had some origins that were Irish and Scotch, but my family was mostly English.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Because my college thesis was writing about William Butler Yeats.
Yeah.
Please,
yeah.
那个 live 哈，
I've certainly
什么？
heard about William
你在
Butler
这里
Yeats
过来。
many, many times.
你这个是用什么？
There are some
要 face 哦，
outstanding
有人
quotes
Yes.
我知道，
from Yates
要给他，
are
你
wonderful.
再给他弄上。微 hand 的微 hand 已经有
everything it's all set up。
你在这
你在 back to
Tonight, the seminar, we had a video record, and then tomorrow we will put in the Taiwan.us.net, so you can put there.
You know the website, right?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I think lots of your fans will be on the program
I
tonight.
appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I see a familiar face, and Patsy has just come on.
Yeah.
Oh, you.
He is the New York Taiwan Center, chairman.
Oh.
I've seen many performances at the Taiwan Center that Patsy has had a hand in organizing. So, much appreciate her art.
More than 15 years, first time I invite you to the Taiwan Center, made the biggest speech,
Yeah? That was a fun time.
Yeah.
It was a fun time. Well, I remember in 2006, at Christmas time, it was either 2006 or 2007, because my son, very, very small, and the community there in Flushing was very kind to have a birthday cake for him the night that we were up there. Because we tried to go near the water for his birthday, because he was born near Virginia Beach, so we would try to go near the water, and the Flushing was as close to water as we got that day. So
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
That time I in charge.
That's right.
My a member of the Taiwan Center is warm welcome you.
Oh, it's very nice. It's very nice. And was that the same time that Cao Changqing was talking?
Oh yeah. In the convention, you and Cao Changqing, yes.
Yeah. Always remembered him because he speaks so quickly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Steve, you can see Paul is also a professor and he's a presenter last week. So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Steve, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And John and Martin?
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, good. So
Doing good.
Famous lighthouse also.
Sorry. So I couldn't just spotted this afternoon. So.
Yeah, we try to keep on time, so maybe 8 more minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So, and let me.
刘教授，你刚才进来很简单吗？或是花了一点时间？
很简单啊，很简单。
好简单 ，OK。
对教授来讲就真简单了。
这页面设计非常 friendly， 非常 friendly。
So Steve, at the beginning, I probably speak some in Taiwanese, and then, of course, while I get to you to introduce you, I will be in English anyway. Yeah,
That sounds fine.
good.
Don't say.
Yeah.
It is better speak the Mandarin. It's better.
Oh, it's bad. But after the Ukraine war, you listen to whatever the president Zelensky he said. I can speak Russian, but I just don't want to speak. I know how to speak Mandarin. I just don't want to speak. Let's try anyway. Bilingual.
Well, the majority of the people in Taiwan still speak Mandarin.
Right, that's
a pure fact.
I know. I do know.
But my first speech, I'm the first one to try to initiate it. I speak in Mandarin because I think it can reach more people. That's the key.
Yeah, I don't oppose, I don't against whatever language you pick. You speak Mandarin, that's perfect. But, still needs someone to speak Taiwanese and then to encourage people to get to that direction, yeah. Of course, we all know the Mandarin, that's should be the basic. Yeah. Okay, hopefully we have a few more friends come in.
The one lawyer, Qiu Yihong, is from Taiwan, no?
Oh yeah, this attorney, he's an attorney from Taiwan, yeah. I think we have more friends from Taiwan at this time. They all come to listen to your speech.
This feels a lot of pressure.
Okay.
Steve Yates, my brother Michael Chai, say hello to you.
Oh, he's a wonderful man.
Yeah.
I've missed visiting with him for some time.
So where's Michael Chai now? Taiwan?
Taiwan, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And this morning he had a meeting in Taipei, so he joined in. Okay, now is 56.
Yeah, just 4 or 5 more minutes, and then we're gonna start. Claire, 我等下有几个PowerPoint 的配置，我可能要对 share 开始吼。好，我是即我先个录起来先啦，先，还是我先个录起吼，等下。
咱有一个speaker 还袂上线着。
哦，伊头拄仔有起来，因头拄有起来，可因着第2点钟嘛，因第2点钟无要紧啦。伊即马是咧联络吼，伊咧联络迄个 Ukraine 的人啦，一个叫做 Andrew 吼，可能会起来。我即马先甲我的PowerPoint share 起来吼。
哦。
安有看无？
有。
有吼。
要请你放大 maximum 你的那个 screen。
Full screen。
安尼使哦。
Yeah.
哦。
Now it's good enough.
安有看啦吼，好。大概都即几个啦，因为我要讲完即只拢有嘛吼。了，我先真紧互大家看者吼，安尼。过来就是这个，这就简单介绍今仔日的啦吼。迄个Martin，你要Stephen 演讲以前，甲你介绍还是啥？
我想要啦，你来喊我，
好啦，好。
但是你介绍迄个台湾会馆的方校长嘛？
好。
伊讲差不多1分钟久安尼。
好。
先hello就对了。
好。
因为点会，因为台湾会，纽约台湾会馆是主办单位，点会所生活有起来讲吼。
是。哦，这大概今仔日因有遮个人，因有4个会起来啦。林志明、卢曼青、杨锦德，啊，甲一个 suppose 是从 Ukraine 的一个Andrew 会起来呢。
因4个人要讲话遐。
可能会拢会。
哦，安尼时间你甲分配一下。
无，因 overall， 因拢讲1点啦。overall， 因就是伫迄个 frame， 迄个 time frame 内底吼，安尼。哦，是安尼，拢知影。我大概就是讲安尼尔吼。这是这个部分 ，OK。
那边是 Jenny 录吗？我需要把它弄成。扣子我才不。
对，他现在不要等一下那个 next section 的时候，第一个 section 是那个 Stephen Steve Yates
Stephen Yates
哦 ，2 more minutes OK。
还是要个听下5分钟嘛，这么几个人 ？OK 好啦，再你决定。
紧来就较晚起来就较晚迄个。
因为咱你先介绍，所以就爱5分钟的时间。
爱烧嘿，咱豆开始好了吼。
恁叫名叫蒋哦，伊蒋我蒋呢。
就 John Shea 就好啊 ，John Shea 就好。
你爱讲蒋Shea 啊，别讲我叫蒋。
佫一寡人嘛，佫叫这嘛真济哦。
John Shea，弗兰克西吼，伊就是4月23要驻港迄个 A1 的沃啦，A1 的沃，伊是变会长。
是。
当时伊要甲一个教授叫做李洪奇教授，伊要讲。
你无要紧啦，嘿，咱即马差不多要来开始啦，吼，这样就要来开始吼。Claire， 你会当开始录个吼。
好。
海内外关心台湾的朋友，大家好，咱今日伫遮要来进行这个甲 Ukraine 战争吼所引起互台湾人的启示第3次的这个座谈会。这个座谈会呢，咱伊是由这个海外网之声来发起。咱有一个 slogan 吼，这个口号就是讲，海内外台湾人共同为台湾来发声，参与主流，行入世界，这是阮的心声吼。因为这次呢，由这个Russia 我想伫台湾真侪人叫做罗西亚啦吼，罗西亚伊侵略乌克兰的时阵。造成吼，咱大家有看到今仔日这个乌克兰吼，会想着讲明仔载台湾到底是安怎，所以咱伫咧遮有要邀请吼 咱已經有做2擺的這個座談會，第一次稍微簡單介紹講這個戰爭的背景啦第二次是由一寡兩個教授其實3、4個教授伊甲咱做一個無共的角度像經濟啦甲政治啦方面的今仔日咱要來請一個就是用美國的算講咱咧講外國人，其實是美國人伊是要安怎來看這個戰爭伊所引起的對台灣的迄個啟示這是咱即馬要來進行的這個第3次的從對這個 Ukraine War to watch Taiwan 的咱的時間是有對東韓、美東、美西甲台灣的時間都這個時間伫遮過來就是要甲大家介紹，就是講今仔日的 keynote speaker 是大家攏認捌的咱的好朋友就叫 Stephen Yates， 伊是過去捌佇迄個愛達荷做共和黨的黨主席，嘛佇這個進前的副總統Cheney副總統的副國家安全顧問就對了今仔日其實呢，我嘛是對華盛頓 DC 邊轉來佇機場有看到講一個 slogan 講 United we stand with Ukraine 這是真好的，互咱的啟示啦So 過來就是講咱Stephen Yates 甲咱講演講煞的時陣大概有1點鐘的時間啦就第1點鐘就是咱第2點鐘有要邀請這個世台基金會世台基金會的執行長林鋕銘先生，伊要來甲咱簡單介紹講因即馬咧做的工作是啥今仔日因有可能會起來，應該是會起來，就是一個基金會的這個執行長林鋕銘先生，甲一個叫盧曼青伊是董事啦過來就是楊經德楊景德伊嘛是以前的幹事就對，佫有可能若接線接了好勢時陣，有一個 Ukraine 的代表叫做 Andrew 伊會起來安尼。Okay, Steve, now it's about your turn. I just briefly introduce you to the audience, and now I should close my PowerPoint and get back to you. Just a second. 可以我即馬 PowerPoint 要甲close 起來，對 close 起來。Okay. Steve?
Yeah.
Now it's your time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, John, and to many, many friends that are joining online and will watch this later. Just want to send you the best wishes. I wish we would all able to meet together in person, but I'm very happy that we can use this format to be able to say hello. In some ways, I think the topic that we're talking about tonight is important and inspirational, but also, I think, important and also a cautionary warning about the challenges that we face together. When we talk about the situation with Ukraine, there are a number of lessons that we have been drawing from that experience so far. We have to be careful because the situation is not complete. We don't know how many other ways Vladimir Putin and Russia might come after the people of Ukraine or impose further damage on the country of Ukraine. But so far, the people of Ukraine, I think, have inspired a lot of people around the world because of their commitment to protect themselves. And so I think one of the first lessons that I think that friends in Taiwan and friends of Taiwan should draw from this Ukraine experience is how important it is for a people to be committed to defend themselves and to have the means to defend themselves. And when they do so, the rest of the world can be more motivated to help. I think that is one of the positive lessons that can be taken from this, that even though a larger military force came against the people of Ukraine, so far the people of Ukraine have held on to their sovereignty and their people have rallied around their leadership to protect their homeland. Now, none of us really want the people of Taiwan to have to prove this again. But if the challenge would come, we do hope that the people of Taiwan have looked very closely at how the people of Ukraine have rallied and how they have defended themselves. It raises some interesting questions, though. In Ukraine, there were issues of what kinds of defense articles the United States, NATO, and other powers were willing to provide before Russia invaded. Because this is a war that has been going on now for nearly 8 years. And there have been issues of what kinds of defense articles the West would be willing to provide to Ukraine over the course of that time. And I think by most people's estimations, that after Russia had invaded Ukraine this time, many wished we had provided more self-defense capability to Ukraine earlier. And so, again, when people look at a Taiwan situation, I think one of the lessons to draw from Russia-Ukraine is that the United States, our allies, and basically the free world should not wait until after an attack to find the means to offer assistance in an appropriate way for the people of Taiwan and the government of Taiwan to be able to defend themselves and until other support might come. There are questions that I think people and government in Taiwan might not be ready to consider, but are relevant in these circumstances. For instance, individual citizens in Ukraine had access to firearms and other kinds of defense articles. Many of them had military experience or training. And so in a moment of crisis, there were a lot of civilian militia type capabilities that could be used to deter elements of the Russian invasion. How prepared is Taiwan and how prepared are the people of Taiwan under those similar circumstances? That's a question that has not really been addressed very much in Taiwan. And perhaps the government and the people are not prepared to address it. But it's one, I think, that comes pretty clear as a need when an overwhelming force comes. Another lesson from Russia's invasion of Ukraine is a military observation that it is easier to defend familiar territory than it is to invade and control outside territory. And so for that, I think the people of Taiwan can feel some measure of reassurance that while missiles coming down from the sky are terrifying, destructive, and we hope that the people of Taiwan never have to witness that, but that the missiles alone do not control or take a territory. And so if there's enough resilience among the people of Taiwan, then the preparations to defend themselves become all the more important. There are a number of issues related to dependencies that have become very clear in the course of the Russia-Ukraine drama. There's the dependency of Germany and European powers on Russia for energy. And those dependencies made the tougher diplomacy that some were advocating prior to the recent invasion harder. And in fact, the toughest sanctions didn't really move forward until after this recent invasion. And so it begs the question. There was a lot of talk in the run-up to that invasion that sanctions were meant to be a deterrent. President Biden has since contradicted that, but still, I think everybody can remember that there were many public statements made by American officials, by European officials, were talking about the importance of these sanctions as being a deterrent. But that deterrent did not work. And after invasion, significant sanctions have been put in place. And so the question on a China situation would be, when is the appropriate time for the free world to try to put forward sanctions? Is it before an invasion or an attack? Or is it a punitive measure after an attack? Because that's more or less what happened with the Russia-Ukraine situation. And now we have some time to assess the wisdom of one approach or another, but also the feasibility of one approach versus another. There's a very reasonable set of questions about whether we could impose the same kinds of financial penalties against China that have been imposed against Russia. Economically, they could be very difficult. The support of allies and coalition members might be very different in a China context. In some cases, it was easy for the United States to impose sanctions on Russia, whereas with China, the interconnectedness of our economies, supply chains, and other factors might make for greater reluctance to impose those kinds of penalties. And so when you start looking at how this has unfolded, I think there are a number of uncomfortable questions that the United States and our allies and partners need to assess, and that those who might be the target of future aggression need to think about. When you think about the issue of dependencies, and you look at Taiwan, Taiwan is blessed with many, many things and is very important to the global economy, more so than the Ukraine is. And so you might hope that the world would be more motivated to try to come to the aid of Taiwan, but also to try to deter an attack before it happens. The entire world is tremendously dependent upon Taiwan's semiconductors and other kinds of chips and technological goods. And so maybe there's greater motivation for the world to see how important it is to make sure that Taiwan is not, in fact, next. However, just as dependent as the world is on Taiwan for these critical inputs, Taiwan has some critical dependencies. Taiwan has not been blessed with its own sources of energy. It can have a certain amount of strategic reserves. But if we look at what Russia was trying to do, seemingly at the beginning of this military campaign, there were rolling cyber attacks that were meant to try to interfere with communications. There was an effort to try to get people to shelter in place so that there would be less interaction and no mobilization. And you can expect that if China were to take action against Taiwan, that cyber attacks and other areas of trying to cripple Taiwan's infrastructure would play a part. You might expect that there would be missile attacks on power supply infrastructure targets. The internet probably would be an attempt to try to take it down. With the Ukraine, there was a lot of international press about Elon Musk bringing in some of his capabilities to help sustain communications. I am not a technical expert able to judge how effective or vital that was. I'm sure that there are people among our group that would know better than I how effective that was. But as a simple matter, it's very clear that Taiwan would have a significant need to have resiliency and redundancy in its communications systems, but also in its power systems. And while I consider myself to be a friend of Taiwan and many people who are in government in Taiwan, I do have an unfriendly recommendation in that I think that for political reasons, Taiwan has moved away from the safest and most secure form of energy that they could have to sustain themselves in this kind of a situation. And that would be with modern small modular reactors. that have been developed in the United States, in Europe, and other places. In fact, many have been developed in China. I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying China's reactors. But because of the politics of nuclear power and nuclear weapons, Taiwan has moved away from that as a source and is instead very, very dependent on oil and natural gas and as an import. And so I think that there needs to be a strategic consideration, not something that can be solved now or this year or next year, but looking over the course of the next 5 or 10 years, if Taiwan is blessed with relative peace for that period, to start thinking about what are some sources of energy and technology that would allow Taiwan to do as Ukraine has done, which is to weather the initial blow of an attack and see that they have survived, and then have the means of communication and the means of energy and the means of defense and the means to feed their people through that period of time to hopefully make the opponent or the attacker weary and for outside support to come and hopefully intermediate the danger. For many decades, those that have worked in national security have looked at plans of what the People's Liberation Army might try to do, whether it would be an invasion by sea, whether it would be aerial bombardment by missile or planes, whether it would be cyber or other kinds of attacks, or whether they would take advantage of assets that they have moved into Taiwan itself already that would be would launch some kind of activities in Taiwan to degrade its capabilities. The last area that I would point to in the Ukraine conflict that I think requires consideration in Taiwan, but it's one that I believe has been exercised and thought through in years past. And there did seem to be an effort somewhere along the lines of this conflict by Russia to decapitate the leadership of Ukraine. There was talk of assassination efforts, but other efforts to try to either lure the leadership into exile or to attack the leadership to take away an organizing and unifying figure of a resistance that might pressure the remaining leadership or people in the Ukraine to submit and accept some new terms for going forward. One would expect that should China, under the Communist Party, take action against Taiwan, that this kind of decapitation of leadership would be an element of their strategy. And so if you look somewhat darkly at what was done by Russia that might be things that China would likely consider, those are some of the things to start thinking about. What are the dependencies that Ukraine had? What are the dependencies that those who might come to the defense of Ukraine had? And how could Russia, as the aggressor, take advantage of those dependencies? China, of course, will be thinking along these lines of how is Taiwan dependent on China? How is the United States dependent on China? How are Japan and other allies or regional partners who might have an interest in deterring China or intervening? How might their dependencies be used for China's advantage? So certainly those are going to be some sobering things to think through. But Friends of Taiwan, I think, can help the government of Taiwan and those in the island itself to start thinking through what are the approaches to energy, what are the approaches to communications that could help be resilient, what are the approaches to make sure that people are prepared, if called upon, to actually fight and be able to show the grit and resilience the Ukrainian people have, which sadly they have suffered, but on a positive way, they have really inspired the world, and they have pulled back the facade on what Russia is. Russia is not a superpower. It is a middle power at best, but it has nuclear weapons, and it has a relatively large military force, but not one that has a lot of discipline, and one that was not prepared for the conditions that it met in Ukraine. That could be the case for the People's Liberation Army. The People's Liberation Army really only knows how to kill Chinese people in China. It has not had successful military campaigns outside of killing Chinese people in China. Taiwan will be a very different challenge for the People's Liberation Army. The People's Liberation Army has new planes and new ships, but they have not been battle tested. And so somewhat like the Russian armaments that went in and got stuck in the mud or broke down, there's a high probability that the People's Liberation Army capabilities have been overestimated. The way Russia's capabilities have been overestimated, the way Iraq's capabilities have been overestimated. And so there are some reasons for hope for Taiwan to have more time and to be able to pursue more options. But I think a lot of it begins with the heart and minds of the Taiwan people, and then the capabilities that they themselves are committed to acquire. And then I think there should be a much, much more pressure on the United States, Japan, Europe, Australia, others, to provide Taiwan with the capabilities that it seeks, not just the capabilities that we will allow. Ever since the change of diplomatic relations and the implementation of the Taiwan Relations Act, the United States has taken, I think, an immoral and ineffective approach to Taiwan self-defense. It has tried to decide for Taiwan what it needs, instead of listening to what the government of Taiwan needs for itself. And the theory would be that it was safer for the United States and for the world if we were in charge of whether a conflict was going to be engaged, and that if the United States was going to intervene, that the United States would come in with overwhelming force. Well, I think the cautionary tale of Ukraine is that when you are a democracy that is outside of an alliance, you have no guarantee of that intervention. And I think that is a stain on the reputation of the countries that in fact gave those security assurances before. Ukraine gave up the world's most dangerous weapons in exchange for international commitments to defend Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty against attack. It was a very clear, unambiguous security commitment, and the world failed to meet that commitment. And so if you're in Taiwan, it's not good enough to rely upon the Taiwan Relations Act. And if you're in the United States, you have to look at the TRA being less of a commitment than an international treaty is. And so we have to, I think, have a much more sober look at what we would be providing or selling to Japan, to Taiwan, to others who need to have the ability to defend themselves. And perhaps that independent defense capability will help sustain our commitment to join and defend when necessary, but also it would complicate China's deterrence calculus. And so I think that there's a lot of deep lessons that we need to take from what we've witnessed so far. And as good as U.S.-Taiwan relations have been in recent years, and I think they genuinely have been good, there's been significant progress in recent times. I think there was the greatest progress in the last administration when Secretary Pompeo, near the end of his tenure, sadly, but nonetheless, he lifted the guidelines that had been put in place by bureaucrats and academics to get in the way of what would be normal interaction between government officials in the United States and government officials in Taiwan. It wasn't recognizing Taiwan as an independent country. It wasn't establishing formal diplomatic relations. But it got out of the way of the silliness about who is flying what flag where and in what buildings are you having meetings. And it got back into, I think, a more common sense area of being able to have rational conversations between the authorities in government who are most responsible for executing government policy. Some of those were reversed in the early parts of the Biden administration. What we can hope for now, and any of you who have the ability to influence them, perhaps they will listen to you in understanding the lessons of Ukraine, I think pretty clearly saying that the United States and others should not be standing in the way of democracies being able to defend themselves. And we should first do no harm. And then, better than that, because we should be better than that, we should in fact make commitments we're prepared to honor to the territorial integrity and sovereignty of democracies. The free world should stand with the free world. I think when we look at Russia, China, Iran, these are not free world leaders. These are the nations that seek first and foremost to impose their will on the free world to the detriment of our interests. And so I don't think we want war with these countries, certainly not what the people of Taiwan seek, has been my best assessment. But nonetheless, just like Ukraine, people of Taiwan might not get to choose whether their neighbor wants to attack. And so that's the reason why we live with instability. It's because of the aggressor. And we need to find a more effective way to deter. In Asia, one of the things we are blessed with is that the nation of Japan has come a long way since World War II. I think that U.S.-Japan relations and Japan's standing in the world have come a long way, but we still have some, I think, legacy constraints imposed upon Japan because of the World War II travesty. I just don't believe that we can face a potential World War III situation and allow ourselves to be held back by World War II. I think it's time we recognize Japan as a normal, responsible stakeholder, leading democracy, generous people, but also with tremendous capability, with wealth, humanitarian assistance, the communication and transportation expertise, and even military capability that probably will pay greater dividends in keeping peace in the Taiwan Straits than anything that will happen in a conversation in Washington for the near future. The people of Taiwan have been blessed with a powerfully strong cultural relationship with Japan, and a lot of leaders across the Diet and across successive administrations in Japan have very friendly relations with leaders in Taiwan. Many of them have visited Taiwan themselves. And so I think some of this is what's going to help Taiwan have a different experience from that of Ukraine. But, and I think that the world watches the people of Taiwan in their generosity, giving humanitarian assistance. Those of you that went to Washington and carried the banners to show that the Taiwanese people stand with the people of Ukraine, I think that demonstrates the strong, positive character of Taiwanese people. But as I say, I see these other lessons as ones that we need to talk about and that we need to learn more from. And then we need to work with our friends in government here in Japan and in Taiwan to make sure that Taiwan is better prepared. Hopefully we see Ukraine pull through this with as much of its territory intact as is possible. As of now, Ukraine has lost territory since the start of these hostilities. We don't yet know what a ceasefire might look like. We don't yet know what kind of revisionist boundaries the international community or whatever kind of peace arrangement is put in place will impose upon the people of Ukraine. And sadly, the people of Ukraine have suffered a pretty significant economic loss as well, with lots of buildings and infrastructure taken down. Millions of their citizens have left as refugees. It's hard to know how many of them will return and when. And then there are those that have lost because of death and injury, and that's not reversible. And so that price is very, very significant and saddening to watch. So the United States and Taiwan, we have, I think, a moral obligation to help the people of Ukraine pick up from this. But I think we also owe it to them and to ourselves to learn these lessons so that this is not repeated in a future time in the same place or in a future time in a different place, like, say, China and Taiwan. So that's probably enough of opening remarks. I welcome the chance to have some questions and continue the conversation. But I just want to not end on a dark and scary note. I think that the world has not really seen how resilient the people of Taiwan are. I think we could do a better job of educating and even warning the people in the Communist Party of China that the people of Taiwan endured 50 years of colonialization and came out the other end with their own identity. People of Taiwan endured a quarter century of martial law and came out the other side with their own identity. The people of Taiwan, turns out, are pretty hard to control and pretty hard to dominate. And so in the longer run, I think that the better bet is on the endurance, survivability, and the democracy that Taiwan has built. The challenge for those of us who live in the United States and elsewhere as friends of Taiwan is to try to make sure that the people of Taiwan don't have to suffer this kind of a challenge between now and a time perhaps when the Communist Party of China collapses or changes sufficiently to where the people of China can have greater freedom and those around China face fewer threats. So that's the more optimistic view of where we might end up someday.
Okay, wonderful. Steve, I think our friends online have tons of questions. And before we start the Q&A, I will just announce that everyone please try to ask a question, not do the statement. If everyone do the statement, then it will be over time, okay? So we try to limit it maybe within 1 minute, raise your question, and then give it to the Steve directly. And you can raise your hand, then we can pick you up. So now let's start from John Wu.
Mr. Yates, a few days ago, right, in the Fox News, Senator Lindsey Graham, during the interview, saying if Russia succeeded taking over Ukraine in a few days, that would be a death sentence for Taiwan. Do you have any idea or any comments about this information?
Yeah, well, Senator Graham wasn't the only person that was talking along these lines. I think especially in the early weeks of this conflict, there was a lot of analogies drawn, and I think there was an assumption that Russia was going to quickly overwhelm Ukraine, and that would, in fact, be an example that emboldened China. If Russia was, technically Russia was not taking on the NATO alliance, but it was attacking Western values, and it very much was daring NATO to intervene in a certain sense. And I think for certain China watched that with great interest to see what is the measure of leadership in the United States, in Europe, in the West generally, and what risks is the West willing to take. Now, I think that scope of financial sanctions that were imposed on Russia in the early parts of this conflict probably came as a surprise to Russia. I don't know that they expected there to be so much, not just government penalties, but international big companies having an impact on Russia as well. That part of it might have given China some pause. But I think the part that probably gave all of them more pause was how long this has been taking. And I think the seeming embarrassment of Russian forces not appearing to be as professional, not appearing to be as capable, and that the reputation of Putin and Russia really has been damaged fairly significantly in all of this. Whether they care or not might be another question. But I think that the people of China have been led to believe that their reputation matters to them. I don't know whether Xi Jinping has a soul, but I believe that Chinese people will have a soul. And I think that the reputational damage, the ineffectualness of the Russian military so far has probably given China greater pause. So when Senator Graham was giving that statement, it seemed more appropriate for a period of time when it looked as though Russia was on the march and might in fact overcome Ukraine. That may yet happen. Again, we have to be careful because we don't know whether we're in the beginning, the middle, or the end of the story right now with Russia and Ukraine. But at least as it looks today, it appears that the people of Ukraine are holding their country. And they're certainly holding the attention of the world. And so they have reason for hope. That part, I don't know that I believe Senator Graham believed that would be there from the people of Ukraine. But Senator Graham also was more aggressive in the measures he was prepared to take militarily that would have put the United States in direct military conflict with Russia. And that's where I think the lessons I was trying to outline, hopefully clearly enough, but maybe I wasn't clear enough in my opening remarks, how incredibly important it is to recognize that Taiwan exists outside of alliances. Taiwan has to have capabilities of its own, fairly significant capabilities of its own. It has to be trained and prepared. It has to have a civilian force, not just a military force, a civilian force that would be able to be a deterrent in a time of need. And so those were the things that I think Senator Graham was alluding to. But I think the Taiwanese next part has gone quieter in the last couple of weeks. And I think it will remain quiet as long as it looks like Russia is stuck in a stalemate. If the tide turns again and Russia is back in the driver's seat, then I think a lot of people in Washington, whether it's in Congress or people in media or the administration, will worry that China sees an opportunity if the West appears unable to stop Russia in this.
In line of your answer, there's a related question. Apparently, Ukraine did not have the ability to defend the Russian missiles. I think the similar situation is going to happen to Taiwan, because Taiwan will be the same as Ukraine, not enough the weapon due to the defensive and the separation of defense and offensive definition.
Right.
So the missile attacking the Taiwan will be so much easier for the communist China to the Taiwan.
Well, I think that's an important principle, and it's one of the things that I think has to get pushed back to the Biden administration, to Capitol Hill, and other places, that this academic distinction between offensive and defensive capabilities is just plain stupid. It is fantasy land. And it is a fantasy that can cost good people their lives because bad people will take advantage of it. Some of that was the constraints that were governing what was going to be provided to Ukraine. And for many years, a lot of the systems that have been provided to Taiwan have not been the most advanced and top shelf capabilities. They have been older generation aircraft with somewhat upgraded operating systems. But I think we have to throw that way of thinking aside if Taiwan is going to have an ability to defend itself, especially if that self-defense capability is meant to prolong the amount of time to degrade the invader and allow others to be able to help and intervene. And so you're quite right that it's an important need. There are some missile defense capabilities that have been provided to Taiwan, but China has well over 1,000 missiles that are targeting specifically Taiwan. I don't know whether the Israeli Iron Dome system could handle something like that, and Taiwan doesn't have anything like the Iron Dome system.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question from the other audience? Okay, Steve, probably I have a question. You do touch a very serious question. That's an ambiguity. And in Taiwan, just in case Xi Jinping said, I will attack Republic of China, not Taiwan. And they say, based upon the UN resolution, so I have the right, she says he has the right to do it. But of course, the United States say no. According to the Taiwan Relation Act, we protect Taiwan. So it's kind of really ambiguous. So can you make it more clear?
Well, I could make it more clear, but it wouldn't help anybody for me to be clear about it, because what we need is for our governments to be very clear. I think another lesson from the Russia-Ukraine situation is that the United Nations doesn't accomplish anything when it comes to halting a conflict. I think the areas where the United Nations has done the most good has been in humanitarian assistance coordination, and that kind of thing has been an area where I think there's been an argument made for good. But if you'll recall, the very farcical UN Security Council meeting that was actually chaired by Russia, it was the emergency meeting to discuss Russia's invasion of a member of the United Nations. They weren't even able to get Russia out of the chair of that meeting. So when it comes to what will matter to Taiwan in a time of crisis, the United Nations is not going to be that answer. It's going to be the direct action of a coalition of the willing. And in Europe, that was NATO to a degree, but it was not limited to NATO. And in Asia, there is no NATO. But in some ways, there are better options. The Quad is not an alliance, but the Quad does identify countries that have significant concerns and conflicts with the People's Republic of China under the Communist Party leadership. Among the Quad, we do have U.S. alliances that are very capable, that could provide more support if needed. And so it's going to be the will of those neighbors, it's going to be the capabilities of those neighbors, and it's going to be the demonstrated ability of the people of Taiwan to stand up for themselves that are going to be key. But I think one thing that Russia has helped clarify is that the notion of shared responsibility for a conflict is what, kind of academics and diplomats have talked about. So when you heard State Department talk about cross-strait relations, usually it would be warning both sides to avoid provocation, warning both sides against changing the status quo. But what I think Russia has made very, very plain, and it should be obvious with regard to China, it's those authoritarian expansionist governments that are the ones that are changing the status quo. That's where the threat is. There is no warning both sides. You have to deter one side, and you have to make the other more capable of survival. So that's where I think hopefully there's another lesson there. I personally support recognizing the Taipei as the legitimate government of Taiwan. I don't think that actually precludes unification with China if people wanted to move in that direction at some point. It just means right now the people of Taiwan are sovereign. They elect a government, and that government represents them. And until someone changes that status quo, that's what we're dealing with. That's why former Secretary Pompeo said that he supports recognizing the Republic of China with formal diplomatic relations. And I think there may be others. And I think that these calls need to come from the United States and other countries, not from Taiwan, because it's not really about a favor to Taiwan. It's in our own systems getting obstacles out of the way for us to be able to provide common sense help. And it's also taking obstacles away that block Taiwan. If the United States and others will not give legitimacy to the government of Taiwan, it is hard for Taiwan to have a seat at the table of meaningful organizations around the world to be able to develop those cybersecurity needs, those telecommunications resilience needs, clean 5G technology, and other kinds of needs. And so hopefully this is a wake-up call for what I think would be a more sensible approach. But that's been a long time coming.
Sure. And we had Diana raise hand. So Diana?
Yes, I think Steve just answered part of my question about officially diplomatic recognition of Taiwan as a country. And you said that it's a long way to go. And so what are the major obstacles? What do you think the possibility maybe in the near future, let's say about 3 years, is there the possibility that could happen?
Well, the analytical part of my mind says that these kinds of changes tend to happen in a time of crisis. That unless we are forced to make a change, we don't make a change because we're used to the way things have been. That's not my wish. It's just observing the way systems of government tend to go forward. That it takes a significant shock for there to be a change. Has the Ukraine situation been a significant shock to get people to think again about Taiwan? I think it should be, but I don't know that it has been yet. If you would think that what Beijing did to Hong Kong would be a significant enough warning. That the pillars of liberty and autonomy, whether it's independent judiciary, free markets, freedom of the press, freedom of association, all these fundamentals that had been left as a legacy of the British time, they've all been eroded from within by CCP influence in Hong Kong. And you would think that would be a wake-up call, that a similar effort would be aimed at Taiwan, and that it requires a different way of thinking. But I have not heard a critical mass of leaders in the United States Congress or leaders in the Biden administration that are even open to the topic at this point. And so my argument would be if sane people were put in charge, we should deal with the world as it is. And the world as it is means that we have believed a lie that the CCP represents thousands of years of Chinese history, when the CCP only represents 70 years of history. And we've believed a lie that Taiwan somehow belongs to China, and therefore the government under the CCP, and that just is not the case. And So if people are willing to set the lies aside, then I think a very rational conversation is there to be had. But we have friends in Japan, Australia, Europe, and other places that have similarly been sold the lie for a long time. And it will take a lot of effort to get them to change. I think that the change would have to come from the U.S. first. But frankly, I think Japan has more of an interest than the United States does in Taiwan enduring and remaining an independent, self-governing territory. And who knows, maybe Japan will find a way to push the United States in the right direction.
Okay, next one will be Paul, Professor Chu. Paul?
Thank you for taking my question, and thank you, Steve, for your very nice presentation. And since you talked about life, I also want to indicate one important fact. This is the Chinese propaganda machine. Has a big influence on Chinese-speaking community in the whole world, including in the United States. After the start of this Russia's invasion against Ukraine, we also see this the Chinese propaganda machine launching a series of the warfares. And, for example, try to demonize Ukraine and accuse, spread a lot of misleading information, accusing this war start because Ukraine wants to join the NATO, and also talk about the NATO extension to Russia border. So this is the kind of big lies. So in your and not mention, a lot of, very mean and low life joke, try to sexualize Ukrainian women. Like, I can give you an example. Chinese media told about they welcome Ukrainian women seeking for refugee in China. The age limitation is 16 to 24. Basically, it's a totally mean and sexualization of certain veterans. So it's very unfortunate. So in your opinion, how can this country and the free world, the allies of the United States, to respond to this kind of almost a war, that kind of challenge from the Chinese communists and the Chinese government? Thank you.
Well, you remind me, Paul, of a topic that I should have put in my opening remarks, but I left out. But it's very, very important. That one of the big lessons from this Russia-Ukraine conflict is information warfare. And that is an area where I think the people of Ukraine have far outperformed expectations. And so the people of Ukraine and their information warfare capabilities have won sympathy of most of the world, and it's only the hardest of targets in Russia itself and in China that it is not really getting through as much. But Zelensky, actually, in speaking Russian to Russians in some of his addresses, is engaging in a very important element of information warfare. And I don't say that in a negative. I say that as a positive because it's a reality of what happens in a time of conflict. When World War II was going on, England was losing. And it was, in many ways, the discourses that Churchill and others gave rallied people, and it changed the narrative in an important way that began to change reality as well over the arc of that conflict. And what you can be certain that if China were to take action against Taiwan, that there would be a massive information warfare exercise. And you ask, what could the United States do? The United States can do almost nothing in the Chinese language. That is the pathetic weakness of our capabilities. We have some people who can speak Chinese adequately. We have some people who can speak it natively. But we don't have critical mass to match the absolute army of Chinese language propaganda that would come from the People's Republic of China. On the other hand, we have the truth. And we also have a lot of the world that can still be shaped by English and other languages. And if we work very, very closely with capabilities in Taiwan, we should be, in fact, be better prepared for this kind of manipulation and psychological and information warfare that China for sure will engage in. And so I think we saw a taste of what that might look like in this recent conflict. And I think that the situation you're describing shows that there will be no standards that are too low for Chinese propagandists, and would probably be even worse if it were a conflict with Taiwan or the United States or Japan. But that information warfare capability sometimes gets minimized by more traditional international relations analysis or military analysis. I think it's actually among the most important things. The access to information and use of information might be the most important weapon in the entire conflict, as long as the conventional weapons haven't killed you first. That's just the sad reality of what an attack means. The economics, very, very important, but I think it's secondary to the military and information capabilities. And so I thank you for raising that topic. I meant to address that earlier, because I think there is a major lesson that the world should take from what has gone on so far in that information warfare space between Russia and Ukraine.
Steve, I think we have very last question from Ray. He just raised hand. Ray, Ray Chang.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Steve. Hi, how are you? Thank you for your presentations, and I think you just raised a very interesting point, because I think Taiwanese government is also wanting to kind of replace or becomes the mentoring education centers in the United States. I think that becomes a good proposal as well to the United States government, that we should actually educate more U.S. people that talk Mandarin. So then when this happens, we can be the first defense for the United States. And then also, I think from Taiwan side, we need to kind of build up that capability as well. Because right now, if I'm talking to a lot of people who used to be in the military, coming from China when they retreat with Chiang Kai-shek government, I think a lot of them are being brainwashed at this point, because they are talking to me saying like how Xi Jinping is great and all that stuff. So that becomes something that I'm very concerned, and I don't know if the U.S. has been noticing that, and also if there's strategy kind of collaborating between Taiwan and U.S. to kind of prevent that from happening, because they're also brainwashing people who are in the United States as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ray. I do think that the language issue you mentioned about Taiwan and the Taiwanese American community playing a more robust role in trying to encourage more Americans to acquire this language capability is a really important one, substantively because of how the language could be used, but also because of the connective tissue that it makes between people in the Taiwan community and people outside of the Taiwan community in America. So if we are one day caught in an information war with China, and I would argue we actually already are in one, but if we are in this, one point of using this talent would be to communicate back to China. But another potential value is for people who can read and watch the propaganda content natively in Chinese, for them to be able to identify the most outrageous things that are being said and done by those Chinese propagandists, so that they are not missed by the major U.S. media, major U.S. leaders, so that people can play those clips on TV and in hearings in Congress to be able to shame China and push some of that international narrative back in against them. But clearly, any effort that can be done to help people get cultural and language awareness that doesn't come from the Chinese Communist Party and their Confucius Institutes is a blessing to America.
Ray, Steve, Steve, no, we had Hello Taiwan raised a hand a long time, so this will be the very last, and then we pass to John Lin. Okay, Hello Taiwan. Raise your question.
Hey, Steve, this is Ming Chang.
Hey, Ming.
And what kind of comparison do you think that the U.S. military would do to compare the PLA and the Russian forces?
Well, the PLA has had a rapid modernization in recent decades. Russia had advanced capabilities that haven't been expanding as much in recent decades, but still able to do impressive things, we thought. I think that the United States is going, there have been two problems in the United States. One has been underestimating the time it would take for China to produce weapons platforms, but probably overestimating how effective those platforms would be in conflict. General Keith Kellogg is one of my colleagues at the America First Policy Institute. He fought in Vietnam, he fought in the conflicts after that, and he fought enough that he became an advocate to avoid war. But one thing that he said just makes a profound difference is that militaries that don't have combat experience and interoperability experience don't tend to have the impact that their governments think they will at a time of crisis. So I think for the U.S., it means we have to highlight concerns about what China has been building, but we need to also understand that if we have coordinated, determined, heavily invested capabilities to respond and deter, we're going to be in a better position to defend and hold territory than they're going to be in trying to attack and take territory. And so we shouldn't seek the conflict, but we shouldn't be deterred to increase our own capabilities and have the confidence that we can come out on the right side of that.
Thank you. Claire, you take a picture, take a group picture before we close and wrap up the first section. I noticed that Andrew from Ukraine is with us. We are expecting to hear from you soon. Okay. Claire, can I hit your想好不好？大家open open.
Can I give a written question?
I think we cut it short. No. We have to wrap up. Okay.
No. I'm not talking about answer question now. I'm not talking about afterwards. I want to write the questions.
Yes.
Okay. Claire, Okay. Next section we pass to the 世台基金會有迄個 John Lin 伊有帶一寡團隊由伊來介紹。The most important, we like to hear from Andrew. I know he's from Ukraine, so that will be very exciting to hear from him. Okay, John Lin, you take it over.
Thank you, John 郑焕兄。邀請世台聯合基金會you invite us to present to the all the Taiwanese community about the STUF United Fund. We have Ukraine refugee relief project ongoing right now, and because Andrew, so I kind of turning to the in English version instead of our dialect, Taiwanese language. STUF United Fund is organized by the Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce of North America. In 2009, then we become a United Nations NGO in 2016 with special consolidated status with UN ECOSOC. And we probably the only, everybody knows that Taiwan is not a member of United Nations. So to participate in UN activities, very, very few for the Taiwanese community. So we probably the only one Taiwanese community ever held side event in United Nations. We held side event in UN high-level political forum since 2017 to 2021. The only one year we don't have is 2020 because of COVID. We have a project over global-wise over 32 now, including Ukraine, 32 countries over. We have a lot of activity going on. We have our own program like Staff Life Education is geared toward the Mandarin-speaking community worldwide. And we also have a Stop Coding International project, which is teaching the elementary student and high school student on coding education. The project is going in Kenya, Peru, and St. Lucia right now. So ever since the Ukraine been invaded by the Russia military, we always have a question: how do we do anything about it to help the Ukrainian refugee situation? So that's the time I get a call from OCAC, it's Overseas Community Affairs Commissioner, the Vice Commissioner, Xu Jiaqing. She called me that, asked me about what we can do. I said, we are working on fundraising. We are preparing to do some of the refugee relief program, but we don't know exactly how to connect to the Ukrainian people. Because as you know, as everybody, we really don't have any contact at all before this activity started. So Xu Jiaqing, 副委员长, actually, she suggested to me, she said, hey, you have a UN status. Why don't you just go to the contact looking for some Ukrainian entity or NGO so that we can work with them? And that's why we started. I have Jenny Lu is staff director. She's online here.
Raise your hand. Jenny, yeah.
Jenny, raise your hand, yes. She will introduce to how we get her on Angel School. And then I also call C.D. Yang and Yang Jingde Sensen in Poland. Okay. And C.D. is 世界台商总会一个当过监事长。Okay. He is a board member of the World Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce, and he is in Poland. The Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce globally has about we have 6 continent chapters, and globally it's about I'm not sure exact number, but we have quite a few local chapters. So that's why we do a lot of projects globally through the connection we have with Taiwanese community over world. In 2016 and 2017, we delivered 56,000 winter jackets to the Syrian refugee children in 4 different countries. We delivered 15,000 in Turkey 2 times, and another 20,000 in Greece 2 times, and 10,000 in Australia, in Europe, one time, and Jordan, 10,000 in Jordan one time. So the capability of the global or international activities go through a lot of connection we have overseas for the Taiwanese community. Okay, and Ukraine project is what we are doing right now, and we go through a lot of grassroots fundraising, and we got very, very positive, very, very good response from a lot of community who has not been out, by outreach, by ourselves, and people are not connection. Like at this time, this group is the first time I ever joined with John's group to discuss the project of the STUF United Fund. So thank you, John. We're good old friends, but it's just I think I know John. 谢振官兄，我们大概已经 somehow we know each other about more than 30 years. Yeah. Okay. So that's what I want to before Jenny start working on. Could I share a video that actually we just recently released, but this is in Mandarin. Okay. So but you can see what we are doing. Could I share the screen?
Yeah. How long will we take?
All right. It's only 3 minutes.
Okay.
I think it's 2 minutes.
You can share the screen, right?
Let me see how I can get the screen.
Share the screen.
Let me see. Let me see how I get the screen on the. Okay.
You had a PowerPoint or?
Much time. I just try to share that screen, but it's taking me too much time to do it.
Why don't we get the Jen do?
Sharing screen without my assistant. Okay, but anyway, that's part of my introduction. So maybe I pass on to Jenny.
John Lin, you had to close the sharing.
Close the sharing?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, stop sharing. Okay, I see.
Okay, good. Right. Yeah, we're back. Okay.
Okay.
Jen Lu Manqin.
Jenny for introducing her part of the job on this project.
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. So this is Jenny Lu. I'm from Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. And I want to say hello to Andrew. It's good to put the face together with the name. I know we talk over the phone. So thank you for the opportunity to share our effort and process in terms of how do we locate the proper charitable organization in order to continue making the efforts through the STUF, the United Fund. So as everybody knows that what's going on between the Russia and Ukraine war, and there's no question that all the charitable organization, in the Western country, everybody is trying to making the effort to help Ukraine, and so do we, the STUF United Fund. Not only everybody work together and trying to put together the effort, trying to do the fundraising, but on the other hand, after we have the certain amount of the fund, how do we find the proper organization and then what kind of products or items that we should select in order to help the Ukrainian people directly. So I was given the responsibility to select organization so that we can work together. And so I gathered about 20-some organization names and from our CEO, John Lin. And so with all of those 20-some organizations, they are spreading around, some of them in the US, some of them, most of them are in Europe. So we have to go through the effort in trying to talk to each organization one by one, and we're trying to understand each organization. So what is their specialty and what are their focus? Because some of the organizations, they might be focused trying to help the soldier in the front line, and the other organization may be focused on supplying some of the medical supply. And after our discussion with all the board members, we decide to focus on helping the children, the women, and the refugees in Ukraine, as well as in Poland. But our first phase will be focused on Ukraine, and we are going to focus on their some of the necessities that they need on their daily life, such as a baby diaper and women's sanitary pad, as well as the food they need to support their daily life. So we understand, they the items they might need, and we understand, there are so many organizations with different specialty, and how do we pick a proper one? So after many efforts, we decide to select this organization, where I'm going to invite Andrew to talk a little bit about this. It's called Charitable Foundation Volunteer Center. This organization was established in 2004, and that was the time when Ukraine went through the Orange Revolution. And so this organization started in the western part, a little town in western part of the Ukraine. And their focus is to help the children and a lot of families. They might be less fortunate and they need a lot of support. So we are after many research, and we locate this organization. And the reason we select this organization is the number one, they locate directly right on the border between the Ukraine and Poland. So we do not need to go through another country. So we will be able to, send our supply direct to this organization, and they will be able to deliver to the family, to the children they need those supply. And the second reason, we feel that this organization has more of an established system. For example, they have some people their solely responsibility is to connect with the Western country, and there are some people their responsibility is to contact the refugee family, and there might be some volunteer. They will volunteer their effort, driving their truck around to collect some of the items, then on the other hand, deliver to the refugee family. And so all of those are very important factors why we select this organization. So at the present time, I would like to introduce Andrew, and so Andrew can talk about their daily operation and how your organization making an impact to the refugees that they need all of the support.
Andrew, before you take it over, please tell us what's your time, because we don't know your situation at all.
It's like 5 a.m. in Ukraine right now.
5 a.m. Wow, you've been with us for hours. Thank you.
Yeah. I would like to say hello to everyone and thank you all for such a great honor to talk to you and to share the experience about the situation in Ukraine, what we are doing, how we are volunteering, and to talk to all over the world, so everyone can know what is going on in Ukraine and how people are organizing ourselves into groups and helping other people who need the support and supplies. So thank you all very much for such a possibility. I would like to say that our action group, or maybe it's would better call a group of activists, we started to help Ukrainian people since the first time of Russian invasion into Ukraine in 2014. It was 8 years ago, and it started just with delivering frozen food to the cities and villages located near the front line at that time. By that time, in the active phase of the war, that was in 2014 to 2016, we delivered approximately 50 large trucks of frozen food, and also we raised money and purchased 75 ambulance vehicles and sent them to the front line so people can use them for their needs. Then became the passive phase of the war, and it was like a ceasefire for that time since approximately 2017 to 2021, and by that time our organization didn't stop volunteering. We focused we focused on we focused on helping children from the war zone to rehabilitation of those children. We organized approximately 10 summer camps in the Carpathian Mountains in the western part of Ukraine. Also, those children were involved in the organization of a bunch of musical festivals and publishing books. So there was a lot of activities for them, and they can kind of forget the horrors of war and have some fun time with their new friends from the western Ukraine. Again, the new phase, which began from the 24th of February, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia. We gathered together and to try to help people more intensively. So now, as you know, there's a difficult situation in Ukraine. like no safe place on the whole territory. We hear air raid alarm every day, and you never know what's gonna happen. Where who will be next under the fire? For example, the International Peacekeeping and Security Center, which is located in Diapori, it's like 10 kilometers away from the border between Poland and Ukraine. It was shelled with missiles 3 weeks ago, so it's so near us, and as I say, no one is safe now in Ukraine. Factories are damaged or even destroyed. Ukrainian economy struggles. People are losing their jobs. A lot of refugees. Well, you know all the news, I guess. But still, Ukrainian people are united. We stay strong. And everybody tries to do as much as he can. For example, we hear the stories like there is a city called Chernihiv on the north of Ukraine, and it was a bridge, and it was destroyed, so people can't reach to that city. But still, local people of that city organized the boats to deliver the humanitarian aid to that city, crossing the river. So even if the bridge is damaged and destroyed, people still are helping each other and saving each other. Well, I can tell you now about how our working process is organized, because since 2014 we kinda improved the structure, and as generally has already said, we have pretty much organized structure. So we have like international call center, the group of volunteers who receive call of those who would like to help from all over the world. We have Ukrainian call center, the volunteers who receive requests from all over Ukraine with asking for help. We have medics, who sort medical aids and packets. And we have social media experts, so they are handling to let people know about us on the internet. So we have the account, the Instagram account, the Facebook account, and they are monitoring the situation and trying to do their best to let people know about us. And it's like the permanent team. It consists of up to 10 or 15 people, and also we have like volunteers who help us with physical power, I guess. They work in the warehouse, so they are moving boxes or sort some things like baby food, clothes, hygiene, or something like that. And those people just they are not on regular basis because they still may have some work, jobs, but they sacrifice their free time to help us to handle some things. There are we all are locals. We were born in the western part of Ukraine, but in recent weeks, a lot of refugees have joined us, so they are helping us too. There are people from cities in the eastern side of Ukraine, like from Kharkiv, from the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv, from Odessa, and many other cities. So now they are helping us too. Thanks to foreign donators, we have already provided more than 230 requests from all over Ukraine, and we have delivered around approximately 50 tons of humanitarian aid in just the first 2 weeks of full-scale invasion. So it's kind of, I guess, good progress, but we wouldn't like to stop. We would like to move on and help as much people as we can. We also, since this year, we collaborate with Hospitaliers Medical Battalion. It is like an organization that takes care about the tactical medicine. So they learn Ukrainian people and soldiers about tactical medicine, and we are helping them with delivery and with purchasing those items for tactical medicine.
Very good. I think, yeah, Jenny, you have some question?
Yes, I'd like to supplement. Andrew, I understand that you have 4 different warehouses. Can you briefly touch how do you do your distribution between the 4 different warehouses? And on the other hand, I also understand most of the organizations that you work together, most of them are from the European country, and we are the only one organization that you are working directly from US. Is this correct?
Yes, I guess it's it's correct. We are trying to reach out to other organizations that are from the United States, but actually you are the first organization to work with us, or we are working with us, and so we are about to receive your humanitarian aid. It's the first time, yeah, you're the first organization. I don't know how much it will be how much organizations from the US we will reach out, but you are the first, yeah. And most of them, as you said, are from Europe, because it's just simply to deliver the aid from Europe to Ukraine than from the US.
Right. Okay. And how about the 4 different warehouses?
The three of them, the three warehouses are located in Poland, near the Ukrainian near the border with Ukraine, and one of them is in Croatia, in Zagreb. So we have like contacts of drivers who are driving the trucks, and we are calling them and just handling if they could take that goods or that aid from one of those warehouses, and they say like, okay, I can do that tomorrow, or I can do that on the next Friday or another day, and we are saying okay, and we are waiting for you. So then they deliver that goods to our warehouse, and we trying to sort it and deliver that aid to the people who need. So people in Ukraine asking us for help. They send us a list of goods that they need. It can be food, clothes, hygiene, baby diapers. They also tell in which quantity they want it, and we are trying to comply their requests and send that help as soon as we can.
The three warehouse is actually located in Ukraine, not in Poland, right? It's in Ukraine and Poland's border, but it's actually in Ukraine, right?
No. Three warehouses are in Poland. Another one is in Croatia. The warehouse that I call our it is just like our warehouse. So we receive the aid there and we sort it. It's not like it's like home base, if you know what I mean. It's like our home base where we receive those things and collect and sort, and then we send it all around the Ukraine.
Okay, John Lin, you ask a question?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Andrew. That's, as you know, this international relief efforts are a lot of point here. That's why I like to you met CDN in Poland. That he's our agent, and his wife Katya are one in charge of the procurement of the relief materials. Because initially we also have some supply to be delivered from Taiwan, but we're facing some difficulty of the international cargo clearance. We don't have a party in Europe to clear those cargoes. So we decide to purchase the relief material in Poland directly. So CD, you are online right now.
杨景德。
那请你接下来跟大家介绍一下，你用中文也可以，用英文也可以。如果你可以
用台语嘛，我紧啦。
中文要紧。
台语嘛，通了对。
对啦，拢会通
啦。景德，哎。
好来了，我先介绍一下因为现在比较我们花了太多的时间在沟通一些税务上的问题因为四台的那个捐款觉得要捐送物资还算蛮庞大的然后呢，这个在税务上有很多困扰，当然我们现在也大概都解决了啦，然后就是用一些合约来补助了，然后呢，应该在下个礼拜呢，现在跟我们的台湾驻波兰的大使把时间敲定了以后，我们在下个礼拜呢，我们就会出发到那个波德那边，把第一个 container， 第一个 container 呢，我们 focus 在有33个 pallet， focus 在那个什么，在那个食物方面，因为从 Victoria 那边来的讯息是需要很多的食物。那我们第一个 container 是 focus 在食物方面，那我们下一个 container 呢是 focus 在医疗用品。唯一跟世台感到很抱歉的就是说，我们时间有 delay， 因为没办法，因为发生战争以后呢，突然之间波兰的制造商他们的单子都爆满，所以我们要跟制造商买东西是不可能的，他那个等的时间会很长，那我们只能什么改变方向，像那个 wholesaler， 向 wholesaler 买，跟 wholesaler 买的话就会稍微贵了一些，这没办法，这个是一个我们就是为了节省时间，我们只能采取这样子那我个人在这边因为有一些台湾的好朋友他们说他们出一些钱，然后让我去买一些物资给他们，或是说捐钱给他们。然后呢，我也等于说我现在所做的事情有两条路线，一条路线就是世台的那个，那我们全力的帮他安排解决税务上的问题，解决 trucking 的问题然后呢还有采购上的问题这个是在世台方面的。然后另外呢一条就是我们台湾个人的一些好朋友，他们就说看到这个战争那么残酷，所以他们也希望说我能够帮助他们把一些物资或者金钱hand over 到受难的这个乌克兰的人的手中。那我们已经做了几批了如果说有看台视的人也会看到他对我们的报道。然后呢，另外就是说我们在等于一个礼拜左右，等于下个周末我们会到500公里以外的地方那个是大概有2万多块的美金要去花现金当然现金的话，我们用钱的话是好像不太好看，所以我们改用那个一个现金卡，就是一个卡片相当于130块左右的欧元。然后呢，那个他们可以到那个 chain store， 大概有3000多家在全波兰那我们要去那边花这个东西。然后呢也接近这个什么，也接近这个 Easter。那 Easter 的话，这对欧洲人来讲是第2大的这个节日，所以我们呢得到那个世台的准许所以我们买了那个复活节的那个巧克力蛋那个是给每一个小朋友的。那我们下个礼拜的周末呢要去的地方是500公里以外，然后那边大概有200多个那个乌克兰这个受难的朋友们，大大小小的朋友们，当然80%是婴儿婴幼儿对不起，婴幼儿。然后呢，我们这个蛋给他们，因为里面那个蛋里面有玩具所以相当有意义所以希望说他们能够感受到我们台湾人的温馨这个就是我们目前所做的这个方向然后呢，越来越多的这个波兰的家庭的确他们面临到很多的困难，因为他们接受了那个乌克兰来的这些受难的朋友们他们本身呢基本上能够接受他们的人说句不好听的，绝对不是好野人都是跟咱同款的这款普通的人然后呢等于说在这个经济上各方面3-5天几个礼拜可能还 OK 但现在已经1个多月了，所以我知道他们已经开始发出那个 求救信号。波兰政府呢是有讲说要 support 他们，但是呢，其实波兰他们不是一个富有的国家，所以呢，那些要 support 的这个资源都还没有到位，所以呢，像一些比较小城镇像我们下礼拜要去500公里的地方它是一个几万人的小城镇，就好像我们台湾讲的一些什么，譬如说什么在中南部一些，比如西湖镇或者什么哪个区域就大概就是这样子的这个状况，所以这个是我们目前就说可能就说我们如果说有力量的人如果能够多帮助他们一下的话，可以减少波兰的那些接待家庭这个是一个非常非常严肃的问题因为你总不能把他们赶走然后但是呢自己也会面临到这个压力所以我希望说如果有机会像这个台湾的一些朋友多呼吁一下或还有我们世台基金会可能也有需要多请大家这个能够多帮忙一下，然后让我们才能够更顺利的来帮助他们谢谢大家。
Andrew, before we take another question from Hello Taiwan, do you know what C.T. Young said? Or probably not. We explain. He basically talk about how he operate and contact with Ukraine, your organization, and how they distribute the merchandise, whatever, to Ukraine. So that's what he talked about. And now I will get the chance. I think at the end, we like to hear from you what you need from the Taiwanese community. So now we take we have two more. Okay, well, a few more questions anyway. One from Hello Taiwan Min.
How you doing, Andrew?
Okay, I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. Can you tell me what are some of your most difficult challenges when distributing all these relief into Ukraine?
I guess the main challenge is the border crossing because there are a lot of traffic because a lot of humanitarian aid is being transported to Ukraine. There are a lot of traffic on the border and the government border serve is checking everything. So it takes a lot of time. You have to prepare the needed documents. And sometimes it still can be a problem. So you would like to receive the aid, for example, in a couple of hours, but it will arrive in a couple of days, if you know what I mean. So sometimes it can be troubles crossing the border, but we are trying to handle this, and in a month of time we have learned to kind of deal with it, and we know what documents we need to have, so our drivers can cross the border without any problems, and we can receive that humanitarian aid without any problem, without any determination, or without any latency.
And how much risk? And how much risk is some of your driver is facing when making deliveries?
It's he's not at risk because it's not like the border is not a war zone, and it's not actually like a war zone in the western part of Ukraine. Our drivers that are transporting the aid all around the Ukraine are in more danger because actually they are going through war zones, and sometimes it can be very dangerous. For example, like I said, in Chernihiv or near Kharkiv, it still can be dangerous to go there, and it's dangerous for the drivers who transport that aid all around the Ukraine. And for the drivers who transport the aid from Poland to Ukraine or from European countries to Ukraine, the main problem is just crossing the border, because, as I said, it can be a lot of traffic, and they would have to wait for many hours or even days before they can cross the border.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew.
John Lin. Yeah.
Yeah. That's Andrew. I'd like to more specifically talk to you. Actually, translate what CDN in Poland talking about. Is that they are ready to deliver about 33 pallets of the food items to your organization sometime next week, sometime either Tuesday or Wednesday, and it will be in the 40-foot container. Okay, it will be a 40-foot container, and the delivery will be hosted by Taiwan representative Ambassador Chen in Warsaw, Poland. Okay, and this is because most of those donations, including Staff United Fund, are all from Taiwanese community. Okay. So, yeah, and I don't know you heard about, or this is probably your first opportunity, first time to meet with Taiwanese community. Yeah. This is probably your first experience, okay? And just for your information, the Taiwan government also set up a foundation in Taiwan called CARE Foundation, C-A-R-E, CARE Foundation. They are receiving about, I'm not sure I'm talking about right number or not. I think about 20 million donation, something like that. Okay, 20 million donation from Taiwanese people in Taiwan, and they are also this part is handled by the government. Okay, this part pretty much handled by the government, and that they will go through the EU channel, the government channel, to deliver to Ukraine people. You know, that's so we have a different channel, so to speak. We have different channel. So I hope that somehow you will be able to let your people know that we do have a communication, we do have a support, and we stand with Ukraine. Taiwan can help. That's how we're talking about in our poster, on the material, relief material poster. That hopefully you will see it, and hopefully we really wish you the best, and we stand with you all. Then and hope this war can be end it as soon as possible. Everybody get back to the normal life, and really wish you luck. Thank you.
We have
Thank
one
you
more.
very much.
We have one more
Words.
question from Ray Cheng. Yeah.
Hey, Andrew. Want to check with you, I guess, do you guys need money or you guys have capacity to purchase goods as well?
We have money, but we need money to purchase goods, and we have international bank account. I can type it in the chat if you want, if you are interested. If someone would like to send us money, it would be possible to do it with that international bank account. And then we will purchase, for that money, we will purchase the goods that we need and deliver them to the people who are need them.
I see. And then do you guys accept any donation for like digital currencies and things like that?
Digital currencies, you mean like cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, like ethers and things like that. Because I mean, I just read the article. There is a Ukraine DAO. I don't know if you know the term, but basically, I believe they raised about $8 million already, and have been connecting with some humanitarian efforts as well. But I mean, it's just an interesting mechanism. I just don't know if the digital currency in Ukraine is functional, or is it easier to go through and things like that?
As far as I know, it's not finally legalized. So it's like half legalized, half not legalized. It's not just regulated by the government yet. So I've heard about that account for cryptocurrency, but regarding our organization, we can receive money on our international bank account, just like money, if you know what I mean.
Understand.
Okay, I think the Taiwanese community will work together and try our best to help Ukraine. And as John Lin and Jenny Liu and C.T. Young, they already had a good channel, and hopefully this can work out. Of course, we also like to hear from Andrew too, okay? So whatever we see that appropriate, we follow, yeah. I think we run up. This is almost 2 hours. Steve, probably he's got left already. Okay. Anyone has a final question? And otherwise, we will close it. Yeah.
One more quick question. Andrew, do you have like YouTube or some sort of social media that we can follow you so can see what's going on your end, and maybe you can send out messages and things that, how we can quickly help?
Yes.
I don't have my personal YouTube channel, but our organization has Instagram account. I also can type the link to that, and in Facebook also we have the account, the Facebook account, and we are interested in fundraising for our international bank account. So it's like some exclusive information. I don't know if we will if it would be possible, but we would try it. So we would like to try to organize a couple of arts happenings, events. It can be like music concert, or maybe it can be like selling art objects. So people can have a part of Ukrainian art and they can donate their money to our international bank account. And I guess it would be managed through YouTube, so maybe it would be like online concert, online gig. So I will inform somehow you, so you can listen to Ukrainian music and I don't know, enjoy it if you like it. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have Martin. Martin will say something. Yeah, Martin.
大家好，谢谢你们来参加这个座谈跟演讲会。那我下个礼拜的演讲同一个时间是邀请那个台湾空军副司令杨延挺中将来讲解台湾军事改革从俄乌战争的启示，那如何来变更改革台湾的防卫，所以请各位来参加。还有另外一个丁教授也同样也来主讲关于台湾的问题，所以谢谢你们下礼拜来参加。这个座谈会总共有15周，每一次有2位主讲人，所以我们也征求以后的这个主讲人，这个我们在利用这个线上的座谈会来谈谈台湾的很多启示跟教训，从这次俄乌战争，所以谢谢你们来参加啊！还有在过去另外1个礼拜有请那个台湾笔会来参加主讲单位，那现在我们这个座谈会是由纽约台湾会馆跟台湾海外网共同来主办。那下礼拜那个台湾人笔会也参加主办单位，所以下次要请李鸿禧教授从俄乌的历史来谈谈台湾的这个状况，还有请一位台湾人笔会的会长，他是 NJIT 的电脑系的主任，他要来谈谈从乌俄战争谈 AI 战争这是很精彩的 AI 战争的系列谢谢你们长期来参加这个座谈会，谢谢你们。那个会馆的副理事长、副董事长方秀荣来跟咱讲几句话好。苏春华理事长，那要伫咱的中间，我来请你讲话OK。
可不可以插几句话？
好邱律师要讲话。
我台湾的律师我参加过台湾的立法委员选举。那因为大家刚刚有在讨论说要到那个怎么上去波兰那边援助那边的难民我一个亲戚在拉脱维亚当大使如果大家有能够我们能够帮得上忙，我就跟我那个亲戚那个拉脱维亚的大使跟他联络一下因为他是最接近波兰的地方嘛他希望因为my hearing is not very good but I can help 这个波兰这边的那个难民OK
那个 Jenny Lu 可能就是跟他们 contact 看看再说嘛Jenny Lu
So before we leave, I just want to take 1 minute to salute every single Ukrainian, and I know they are doing their very best to protect their own country. For example, my previous contact, Victoria, from this organization, she is a musician, and she just left for the 3 months to fulfill the 3 months contract, right, Andrew?
Right. She went to Europe, to Sweden, and she will have the job as a musician. But still, I guess it's a great opportunity to tell the world about Ukraine more, tell more about Ukraine and about Ukrainians. And I thank you all very much. We feel your support very much, and I guess that together we will win in all kinds of.
So
yes.
Andrew, what's your time now in the morning? What?
It's 6 a.m. in Ukraine.
6 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you so
thank
much.
you
Andrew.
being still up for the whole night with us.
OK 啊，现在请那个纽约台湾会馆的参书理事长讲1分钟的
哦，
祝福
苏教授苏春怀嘿。
若无方少壮嘛，伫咱的中间临时代表讲几句话好无？方少壮副理事长，
你要mute，我们很高兴 being part of 这个sponsorship，谢谢。OK。
好，
台会馆的 ，OK。
好。
苏理事长，你要 mute 啦。
哦，苏教授还有伫咧无？
有啊。
有啊，有我
你要 mute。
哦。
你迄个要静音甲关掉，就会当讲话啊。
你迄个甲试落有无？你迄个麦克风你甲试落啊？麦克风迄个。
16现在都上线了，对。Anyway， 我们已经3个小时了。
好啦
，OK， 好。
多谢大家来参加这个有意义的研讨会安尼吼。我要来对这个乌克兰的人民的勇气，足感动的安尼吼。所有台湾人爱学习乌克兰的精神，因为台湾的安全爱台湾人家己来救咱。好，谢谢。
好，我是真感谢迄个苏教授吼，苏博士甲咱勉励啦吼。I think Andrew, probably we wrap it up now, and we hope to hear from you soon. And any further question, you can contact either John Lin or pass the information to us. We will respond to you. Okay. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. Appreciate.
Okay. Thank you very much for that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you everybody, especially Andrew and CD Young. Yeah.
谢谢，我们还可以去睡觉。
半夜 you are in.
OK， 最后一个请求，今天台湾的那个曹兴诚董事长有讲话，就是说台湾的人民跟政府要把乌克兰的精神跟他的遭遇来启发台湾人。他说，台湾人一定要有坚韧的意志来保卫自己的国家。第二个，他的提议说，全民要结兵，然后同时大家有共同的意志来自己的国家自己救征求主讲人征求主讲人。谢谢。
Andrew, I like your military anthem. One of the paragraphs to tell us that crime will not give you any freedom, and then only fighting we earn you respect. I think we all have to unite together and to defend democracy and freedom. 好，咱今仔日到这吼，多谢大家来参与。那后礼拜佫继续吼，好，多谢。
谢谢。
Thank you. See you all.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Okay. Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
可以，你再揀錄音嗬。 完了，结束了。哦，这个很多人看。Alex， 刚了这张，
什么量太热了。
好了 ，finish，share video。